Do you know about Milton Friedman? He's the economist who gave us Reaganomics and helped popularize the free market theories that have brought massive inequality since the Reagan era. Now, how could anyone have a problem with economic freedom? The way Friedman pitches economic freedom, why it's about as American as eating apple pie while watching a baseball game in an American flag t-shirt. America. Americans love freedom. So what's wrong with the free exchange of goods and not allowing the fumbling hands of government to interfere with the wise and invisible hand of the marketplace? Please allow me to explain. Milton Friedman's most important contribution to the modern world was equating economic freedom with political freedom. They are not the same. Friedman and Freddie Hayek promised that economic freedom was a necessary means to greater political freedom. But freedom for whom? The seductive power of this argument is based on blurring the lines between what economic freedom and political freedom mean until they both just become freedom. Hayek himself even warned that totalitarian states do precisely this, saying that wherever liberty as we understand it has been destroyed, this has almost always been done in the name of some new freedom promised to the people. We all love freedom. Freedom is great. But if we were to interrogate that word a little, what do we mean? The philosopher Isaiah Berlin noticed there are two basic meanings hidden inside of our notion of freedom. Like an atom, there is both positive and negative. Positive freedom is the freedom to. The Bill of Rights gives us the freedom of speech and assembly. That means we have the freedom to speak out against government policies that we don't like. We have the freedom of religion, the freedom to worship however we please. We have the right to a speedy trial by the jury of our peers. The freedom to bear arms. And as Milton Friedman notes, economic freedom has a positive aspect too. The freedom to buy whatever color tie we want. Though I'm pretty sure that members of the Central Committee of the Communist Party in the Soviet Union were also allowed to buy different colored ties, even under Stalin's brutal yoke. On the opposite side of the coin, according to Berlin, is negative freedom. This is the freedom from. Freedom of speech and religion is freedom from government persecution for one's beliefs. The right to trial is freedom from government persecution without the burden of proof. Economic freedom, according to Friedman, requires freedom from coercion. Economic freedom requires freedom from government intervention for markets to be as efficient as possible. Economic freedom is never parsed out like this by Friedman, but most of its benefits flow way more from the negative freedom from than the positive freedom to. The primary agenda is to get government out of the economy entirely. But people might not enthusiastically support that idea if it were made the primary focus of economic freedom. Friedman would be pleased if we ignored any distinctions between positive and negative freedom and focused solely on the freedom to choose. Who doesn't want that? However, there's a much more important distinction between political freedom and economic freedom. The truly insidious part about equating economic freedom with political freedom is this. With political freedom, there is no price for entry. This is not so with economic freedom. All are free to enjoy the freedoms provided by the Bill of Rights. One need not even be a citizen of the United States to enjoy the freedom of speech, religion, or assembly in this country. Even undocumented immigrants are given the right to a fair trial by the Constitution. Every citizen in this country has the right to participate in elections, unless they commit a felony in some states, but we already covered that. This is the land of the free. You don't have to do anything special to enjoy these political freedoms. I repeat, this is not so with economic freedom. Economic freedom requires money. You can't participate in free markets unless you have currency. In order to have the freedom to choose what tie you want to buy from the store, you must have enough money to afford a tie. In order to choose the tie you like versus the cheap, ugly ones in the bargain bin, you need to have enough cash to buy something desirable. The more money one has, the more economic freedom they have. But if you don't have any money, you can't buy any tie at all. You have no economic freedom. Economic freedom is predicated on having money. This is why economic freedom should never be equated with political freedom. No money, no freedom. This is not how political freedom works. Ideally, anyways. I don't need any money to express my opinion freely. I don't need any money to cast a vote on election day. We are all theoretically equal. One person, one vote is the political ideal. We all have the same amount of power on election day. Equal justice under law is engraved on the Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. This is the political ideal that forms the basis for our legal system, going back to ancient times. No one should get special treatment because of who they are or what they own. I realize that reality does not always measure up to this ideal, but the basic principle holds true. Political freedom has no cost for entry. All are allowed to participate without precondition. It's like the rallying cry during the French Revolution: Liberté, égalité, fraternité, ou la mort. Freedom, equality, brotherhood, or death. These ideas are linked. We are equals. We are brothers and sisters. We are free. This is not how economic freedom operates. The closest syllogism that economic freedom has to one person, one vote is $1, one vote. These ideas are not the same, because more dollars means more votes. Logically, no dollars means no votes. A person without money cannot participate. Shareholder democracy is the perfect example. Some shareholders fervently agree with Milton Friedman's contention that if they own stock, they are the owners of a company. When a company's executives aren't doing enough to maximize profits, the shareholders sometimes revolt and vote to replace the board of directors. The way they do that is by shareholder democracy. Every shareholder has a vote when it comes time to elect the board that executives answer to. The more shares a shareholder holds, the more votes they get in an election. Therefore, the person with the most shares is the most influential person in that election. On the other hand, anyone who's not a shareholder doesn't get to participate at all. 0 shares, 0 influence. The more money a person has, the more economic power they wield. No money means no power. This is the nature of economic freedom. And don't forget that the vast majority of stocks are held by the rich and the even richer. To emphasize the importance of shareholders in the broader economy is to emphasize the importance of the rich. The richest 10% of Americans control 89% of the stock market. Please do not forget this. When Friedman redefines the purpose of capitalist enterprises as increasing shareholder profits, what he's really saying is that business should exist primarily to enrich the rich. This is not why corporations existed historically. In fact, the earliest examples of corporations required a charter bestowed by the crown or the government to even exist. These were only given to projects like maritime traders and for the building of public works like bridges because they served a public function. Just because corporations aren't required to serve a public function today doesn't mean that they should only serve shareholders. The notion that business should only exist to maximize shareholder value is a fairly recent historical innovation. Shareholder primacy is one of the reasons our society is in this pickle, where people like you and me are barely scraping by. Capitalism is a wealth concentration machine. It's hard to concentrate wealth if you don't have any. Tomorrow we'll examine how freedom took the extreme position of favoring the rich at everyone else's exclusion and made it the world's dominant economic philosophy. In the meantime, please like, follow, favorite, and subscribe to my free Substack. Let's make them pay.